Yo, what's happening, guys? How are you doing? This is Rob of Ro2R Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're finally ready to talk about E3 because it is less than 2 months away. So exciting, and there is a lot to talk about. So while I'm not quite yet ready to start getting into prediction videos, I did want to start talking about some of the things I hope to see at the show. If you've been following me for a while, meaning a couple of years, you would know this is, I think, the third year in a row that I've decided to do two separate videos building up to E3, one about confirmed games that I'm excited to hear about, and then one about wishlist or dream games that I hope to see revealed or announced at the show. And that's what I'm doing today. I have 5 games, 5 titles that I just really hope become a reality at E3 this year. I mean, when we think about E3, it's one of the things we get the most excited for, right? Is like surprises. Oh my god, I didn't know XYZ game was going to be announced. Oh my god, this sequel to this series that I love so much suddenly has a new entry. And all of these things, it's the hype and it's the surprises that we want. And so, I like to discuss some of the games I hope to see show up. Now, there are 2 specific titles or franchises that I want to bring up before I get into my list of 5. Because these are games that obviously do not qualify or I'm deciding not to talk about. The first is Metroid. Probably not a surprise to a lot of you. Obviously, Metroid Prime 4 we know is not going to be showing up at the show. But beyond Metroid Prime 4, as I discussed in my last video, I like to believe in this idea that Nintendo may be looking at creating some sort of new Metroid experience for the Switch to possibly release maybe next year, to fill in some of that gap in time between now and Metroid Prime 4. And while the Metroid Prime trilogy could technically qualify as that, I like to think that maybe they might do something else, like a 2D side-scrolling Metroid of some kind. And I want to believe in that, but I'm deciding not to include some sort of dream surprise Metroid experience to be announced at E3 this year. I just don't feel like it makes sense for this video, so I don't want to discuss that. The other one is Bloodborne 2. And there's a pretty obvious reason that I'm not talking about Bloodborne 2, even though I want it so badly, and it probably would have made number 1 or 2 on my list, is because Sony, as we know, is not showing up at E3 this year. I figured that since the weirdness of Sony not showing up at E3 this year is kind of unique, that it was worth it for me to at least mention the fact that in any other normal year, if Sony was attending like we would normally expect, Bloodborne 2 would be right at the top of my list. But Bloodborne is a Sony-owned IP, even though From Software are the developers of it. And so if it was ever going to show up, it would, 99% be a Sony game unless somehow the rights reverted in some weird way. I don't know. Either way, it would be a PlayStation game, and PlayStation is not going to be at E3 this year. So I was like, I have to scrap Bloodborne. It's not going to happen. So no Metroid talk, no Bloodborne talk. And with that being said, let's jump in to number 5. And so kicking off my list here at number 5 is No More Heroes 3. Oh yeah, that's right, No More Heroes. Probably a surprise to hear me bring that up on this list, but I truly am a huge No More Heroes fan, and I know a lot of you guys have heard me say that over the past. I really love this franchise. I believe in Suda51. He's been very active over the past couple of years. Obviously, he's been letting us know that the No More Heroes brand, and Travis touched that as a character, clearly means a lot to him, as evidenced by the fact that we even got a No More Heroes spin-off game, Travis Strikes Again, released earlier this year, which I discussed, I reviewed, I very much enjoyed the game. It is flawed and simple, and I actually really hated the final level of that game. But that being said, overall, the game was fine, interesting, a nice distraction, but we all know what we really want. It's No More Heroes 3. We want that sequel to Desperate Struggle. We want a game where it emulates and improves upon the awesome actual action gameplay of the first 2 games. Maybe bring back an open world, get Travis Touchdown's story to continue, show us new characters. Something that feels more real. I mean, Travis Strikes Again was a little too simple for my taste, even though it is a fairly decent game. We all want that true third game, and honestly, Suda's been teasing it for a very long time. A lot of us know this. Apparently, he's got some sort of announcement he's going to make in the next couple of weeks at some convention somewhere. I doubt it's going to be No More Heroes 3, but a lot of people are talking about it like it is. I don't expect that. I think we would probably hear about it at something like an E3. So does it have a chance at showing up this year? It's very slim that it shows up, but that doesn't stop it from being one of the games on my list, so for me, No More Heroes 3 is number 5. Now at number 4 is another game that may surprise you guys, and that is Resident Evil 8. Now, I do have to state, that if we didn't just recently have a Resident Evil game release, that being the Resident Evil 2 remake, and only a year and a half or so before that also have Resident Evil 7, this game might be higher on my list. The reason it's a bit lower is because I do actually think it's too early for Capcom to confirm Resident Evil 8. It's not impossible because, again, yes, we're only a couple of months off the heels of Resident Evil 2 the remake. Resident Evil 7 is about 2.5 years old, so we're kind of in a window where it might make sense for them to talk about Resident Evil 8, but I still feel like overall we're a little too close to these recent releases for them to discuss it. But since it's not impossible, and it is a dream game I want to see made, I wanted to include it on this list. I love Resident Evil, one of my all-time favorite franchises, one of my favorite non-Nintendo franchises, like literally like the top 2 or 3 probably. And I did think Resident Evil 7 was awesome, you guys. I've discussed it before. A great return to form. I don't even hate 5 and 6. I mean, they're not great, but I don't hate them. But 7, despite moving into first person, really felt like a true Resident Evil experience and a great sort of spiritual sequel to Resident Evil 4 and the games that came before that. I mean, it really was something special. Obviously, what they did with Resident Evil 2 the remake was also fantastic. When it comes to Resident Evil 8, I would be okay with another first-person game. I would be okay with another third-person action game like 4, 5, 6, and the 2 remake. But I also really dream of a time where they go back to the static camera angle tank controls kind of Resident Evil. I know most people hate that, but I truly love it, you guys. Either way, at the end of the day, it's a wonderful franchise. It's had a great resurgence the last couple of years with 7 and the remake of 2. And I do believe that Capcom is making Resident Evil 8, so fingers crossed it shows up this year, so for me it comes in at number 4. Now coming in at number 3 is a series that might be the most surprising or obscure to a lot of you, but that is SSX. Yes, the snowboarding series. I am dying for a true return to form for SSX. They did give us a game in 2011 or 2012 or so for the 7th gen, and it was fine. I appreciated what it tried to do, and it definitely did work and was fun. But anyone who's familiar with SSX, in particular the absolute unquestionable king of that franchise, SSX3, knows what that series is supposed to be and knows what the 2011 game didn't have. And it is insane characters and over-the-top tricks. That is what makes SSX work, in my opinion. Those first, I guess, 4 games, maybe even 5 if you count SSX Blur on the Wii, really had a lot going for it. Beyond fantastic controls, great graphics, it had crazy over-the-top twists, all these crazy effects going on and fireworks when you're running down the courses. It had DJ Atomica and Radio EA Big doing the whole thing, amazing soundtracks of licensed music, and over-the-top crazy characters that you identified with that had personalities and that you got to customize throughout your experience. And the last game didn't really have any of that. It went for a little bit more of a blending of an arcadey experience and a simulation experience. And again, it wasn't terrible, it just wasn't great. I want them to make the game that feels like the true sequel to SSX3. In fact, I want them to call it SSX4. Every game after 3 was either On Tour, Blur, or just SSX. And I really want them to make SSX4. So either way, SSX3 and Tricky, 2 of my favorite games of all time. So please, EA, bring back SSX. Now at number 2 is a series that I just talked about in my last video, and that is Star Fox. I want the return of Star Fox very, very badly, you guys. And as I discussed in my last video, it is a franchise I think Nintendo is not done with. There is a bit of controversy or some questions around Star Fox as a franchise coming off the last release, which was Star Fox Zero on the Wii U. A very divisive game, a game that most people did not enjoy, did not review well, did not sell well, and I totally understand it. I actually like Star Fox Zero quite a bit, but it does have its fair share of problems, and like I said last time, there was also a lot working against it when it released anyway. So I could see how some people might think that Star Fox is dead or is going to be dormant for a long time, but I'm not quite yet ready to believe that. I really think that Nintendo still believes and knows that they have something great with Star Fox, and they have to know that the Switch is an unbelievably great platform to bring a good Star Fox game to. I mean, hell, Starlink Battle for Atlas already showed that. What if Nintendo themselves actually have a great Star Fox game in the making? And there's rumors about Retro Studios and the Star Fox racing game and all these things. I've discussed this before. I actually do like the idea of that, and I would like to see it be a reality, and maybe it's real. But time will tell, and it's either going to be a different Star Fox game, the racing game does turn out to be true, or maybe I'm wrong and Star Fox is going to be dormant for a long time. Either way, I want to believe in it. I really, really, really love the Star Fox franchise, you guys. And so with any luck, it shows up at E3 this year from Nintendo. So for me, it comes in at number 2. And now, coming in at number 1 is a game that you guys are going to probably completely laugh off of YouTube when you hear me say it, because there is almost no chance in hell that this becomes a reality. But I want it this badly, and I'm going to probably just keep dreaming for this franchise to return until I'm dead. But I don't care. I will keep the dream alive no matter how stupid the company behind it is. And that is Silent Hill. So yes, I know, we all know that Konami sucks. And Konami is not making good games anymore. And we will probably never, ever, ever see another Silent Hill game after the debacle that was Silent Hills, the game where they were making with Hideo Kojima and Guillermo del Toro. That looked fantastic. We all know about the PT demo. I had the PT demo. And it's a crazy turn of events. And yeah, Silent Hill is probably stuck in limbo forever. But you know what? I don't really care. It doesn't stop me from wanting to put it at the top of this list because I truly, truly adore the Silent Hill franchise, you guys. Similar to the old Resident Evil games, I like those old, clunky, awkward Silent Hill games. I love the themes that they explore. I love the worlds and the atmosphere and the music. Oh my god, I could just eat that stuff up. I mean, I am a horror buff. My girlfriend and I love scary games. We love scary movies. We're spending a lot of our free time watching that stuff. And Silent Hill, to me, I mean, it might be the best horror franchise ever. I mean, yeah, Resident Evil technically is better quality, but as far as my personal enjoyment and preference, it's that ambience and the atmosphere of Silent Hill that I really, really love a little bit more than the more polished gameplay of Resident Evil. And I know it sounds crazy, but that's just how I feel. And you know what? As dumb as it may be, I'm just gonna go ahead and be completely insane and say that I think there is the tiniest, itty-bittiest, most microscopic little tiny sliver of a chance that Konami might eventually decide to make a new Silent Hill game. And I know that that's playing with fire. It's basically Russian roulette for video games. I mean, thinking that they're going to do something smart. But hey, they've kind of, sort of tried to do stuff in the Metal Gear space. Maybe they eventually start to, release their death grip off of Castlevania and Silent Hill. Anything is possible, even though it's really, really unlikely. So either way, at the end of the day, I love Silent Hill. I want it so badly. It is virtually impossible, but I have to keep the dream alive as a huge fan of the franchise, guys. So for me, Silent Hill comes in at number 1. So that's it, man. Those are the 5 games and franchises I really hope we see surprise revealed and announced at E3 this year in 2019. This is just a wish list, like I said. So obviously, I think we're too early to probably see Resident Evil 8, but I put it on there because I want to see it. Silent Hill is basically never going to get another release again, but I want it so much, I put it on my list. I even put it at number 1. That's how this works, man. I mean, that's the cool thing about E3. Like, anything goes, anything is possible. It's all about those surprises, man. Those are the hype moments that we live for. And now that we're 5, 6, 7 or so weeks away from E3, it's time to get hyped. And I'm just really enjoying thinking about that stuff. Pretty soon I'm going to make a video on the top 5 games I want to hear more about that are already confirmed games that we know that exist, because this is just what I like to do. It's always fun to make a list. So discuss my 5 choices below, yell at me for how much you disagree, and then of course discuss the games that you most want to see revealed at E3 this year. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks of course as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.